This is Max Israel. This week, the power of interlocutors. If you've never heard that word before, don't feel bad. A lot of people haven't. We're going to unpack it for you, explain it, and tell you why it's so important to you. Hey everybody. Okay, so before we get started with this week's vlog entry, I just got to tell you something so you don't worry about me. I'm coming to you from our from Customerville's Europe office in Valencia, Spain, and we are right in the heart of the city. And right now Valencia is having a festival called Falles, Las Falles. We are in Falles. And what do Valencians do during Falles? Well, they eat a lot, they drink a lot, they dance a lot, they play a lot, but they also blow up stuff. So you're gonna hear a lot of fireworks going off in the background. And I just don't want you to worry, they're not shooting at me. So that's just what I want you to hear. By the way, if you are ever here, come visit. Let me just show you a quick clip of what I recorded from my office balcony today. Also, if I'm shouting, it's because I've lost my hearing. Okay, so let's get started. What is an interlocutor? An interlocutor is a conversational partner. It's the other person you're talking to. And this is an important concept. We're doing kind of a series starting last week, this sort of series of vlog entries on low volume, high value feedback. What do you do when you need to get feedback from people who are like the hardest people to get feedback from? You don't have like a million people to get feedback from. What you've really got is a very much smaller number, and boy, oh boy, are they important, right? That is an LvHv scenario. And last week when I kind of introduced that concept and I talked about the 5 elements that we see in successful LvHv campaigns. The last one, which is what I want to talk about today, is feature an interlocutor. I want to delve into a little more detail on that. An interlocutor is a conversational partner, right? And so if you think about how a lot of feedback is done, it's a company, they put their logo in a web form, they email this thing out or whatever to a gazillion people, and they hope some of them are willing to just go through and fill this form out, which sort of fails every rule of human conversation you've known since you were 5 years old. What we want to see you do, and what I want to see you do pretty much in any feedback initiative, but absolutely if you're in this very, very demanding, low volume, high value scenario, is feature an interlocutor. And that can be one of 2 types of things. Number one is we can say, hey, listen, we're going to feature a customer, right? We're going to feature someone outside the company and say, listen, this is the experience we want you to have through the voice and through the eyes of our customer. And I'll just show you a couple of examples here. Here's an example of a health insurance company. And you can see how we are showing pictures of the customer. And actually in this particular case, the survey actually knows kind of what socio-demographic group you fall into, and it's going to try and get a picture that looks a little bit like you. And we're going to show you these hero photos of customers and say, this is what we hope we saw happen. Right? This is what I hope your face looked like. This is what I hope you looked like. This is what we want to see. Here's another example, a pharmaceutical company, where you can see we're featuring the customers who are physicians, right? This was getting feedback from oncologists. You want to talk about a demanding group of people you're going to try and get to fill out a survey. Try getting a doctor who's treating cancer patients to do it. That's demanding. And we are very successful at doing that. Why? Because we take them through a series of steps where we walk them through the customer journey, showing people just like them, the interlocutor is the doctor in this case, who's the customer. So that is one way to do this. One way is to have your interlocutor be the customer, right? And that's definitely effective. But I actually think in the case of low volume, high value feedback, I'd almost rather see someone inside the company. And in the case of the employee, you're saying something a little different, aren't you? What you're saying is, hey, listen, I work at ABC company. This is what I hope we're delivering. This is my dream of what I really hope we're delivering. Let me give you a couple of examples of that. So I'll give you one example. This is an engineering firm where the interlocutor is the CEO, right? And so what we want to do is we want to engage early. We'll talk about this a little more in coming weeks, but engage early, not just, kind of send them an invitation. We want to engage that CEO early and say, hey, listen, I'm the CEO of the company, and this is kind of my vision for what we're trying to do. And over the course of the year, I'm gonna be asking you some things, or I'd like your permission to ask you for some feedback that comes directly to me and my core team, and you're helping me drive the future of the business. So what are we doing there? And this is one of the reasons I think it's so effective to use for LvHv feedback, to use your CEO or someone like that as the interlocutor, because you can kind of stroke the ego of the person who is getting this, right? You can say, hey, listen, I'm going to ask you over the course of the year for feedback. We're going to use this to make big decisions about the future of the company, right? Let me show you another great example. Cisco Systems is one of our clients, and I'll give you an example here of where their CEO Chuck Robbins is starting out by just coming right out and saying it. Grateful for the last 30 years, ready for the next 30, asking our most valued customers to help us get there. And then we'll have done some integration with LinkedIn to kind of pull up a headshot of the recipient of this, and we can even put that next to Chuck Robbins' photo. So we're all of a sudden kind of taking what I think Cisco probably thought of was a weak point early on, right? Hey, we've only got a small number of people, because these are highly, highly valued decision makers, right? We've got this very small sample size, and our point of view was, come on, that's not a problem. That's a big advantage. Let's treat it that way. Let's sell people on this notion that they're part of a very exclusive group. So that's, again, one of the reasons why I think using a CEO as an interlocutor is just a terrific example, but I'll give you some other examples. So here's an example of an airline using their director of customer advocacy and some of their other employees as people who say, hey, listen, this is what we dreamed of, what we aspire to have in terms of our customer experience. If this was our vacation, this is what it would be. Here is another example showing you a company that specializes in vacation campgrounds, where the interlocutor is the employees who are on the front line. And look at what they're doing. They're saying, if this was my trip, this is how I would want it to be. But it doesn't even have to be, an employee you might typically think of as the CEO or the frontliner. Some of our clients are large enough to have a company historian. So here's an example, Ray Brewer, who is the company historian at Xerox. That is a great example. The company historian doesn't even have to just being really honest here, doesn't even have to be part of the overarching project to get feedback. What he is he's kind of its spokesperson. He's a credible interlocutor, and if you send something from Ray to this elite group of people who you're trying to get feedback from, and I don't care whether you're Xerox trying to get feedback from your most valuable customers, or NetJets, or a luxury manufacturer of luxury goods, or something like that, right? Having the company historian say, we're recording history here, and we're helping plot the future of that history, and we'd love to make you a part of it. That's powerful stuff. That is the kind of messaging that takes you from a small single-digit percentage response rate to people who look forward to getting these messages over the course of the year and to playing a part. All right, guys, that's it for this week. Before I let you go, we did get some reader emails, and a lot of them kind of fell into the same category. I'll pick one in particular. A good friend of mine, Lorraine Schumacher, Lorraine's just a CX legend, a total CX thought leader. So Lorraine, thank you for your message. She asked to what extent the lessons that we're talking about in LvHv feedback apply just generally, and that's just a really good point. So Lorraine, thank you for that, and it's true. They do. Really, you could consider everything we're talking about as regards LvHv feedback as being a kind of best practice just generally in the world. In a world where people got 40 billion surveys last year, you could consider all of these things to be best practices to make sure that you're kind of cutting through the noise. But when it comes to people who actually have a very tight, very small group of people they've got to get a very, very high engagement rate with, then it goes from being a best practice to a must-have, if that makes sense. All right, guys, until next week, take care.